Hey, so this is a simple video where I just show how clean code can be arranged and how anything can be found easily. Um, I think React is sort of a piece of junk on how most people use it, and it just makes things too complicated and hard to find. I really like to create my own things based on the project, and I've worked on one project solely within WordPress for the past 5 years. Also a bit of other things, but 80% of the time was this. And I want to build a full web app and rely on loading stuff as needed when it comes to components. I also wanted to create a wrapper for any third-party libraries we might be using. We also invented our own. In our case, we had the Scorn player. We integrated the same as a third-party library. So for example, we use a bunch of things here, and these are the only libraries we use. Only one of them is paid, and we have an OM license. I think that one is Daytime Picker, but everything else is MIT or something that allows us to use it for free. So how did I structure things in a way where I can just integrate one of these easily on demand for the use cases I need in the project, not more? So for example, one of the most complex ones is the select to. So in here, there are multiple data sets that might be needed. And I have a key map, sort of. It's just bidimensional, I guess, where for a taxonomy search, this is the data point, post search, this is the data point, learning journey, data point, etc. And anytime I need it, there is a HTML identifier like this. And that's pretty much how it gets loaded. So it gets identified in the HTML. Now if the function exists, because we need to work in WordPress, we need to avoid plugin conflicts. It's not as simple as in when you make standalone projects where you control the whole environment. Here you need to work very defensively. And I think this makes React developers bad because they always are in the same box, and if plugins arise, if conflicts arise, it's most likely from their coworkers or other people involved in the project, not because of some random effects that can happen. Because in WordPress, anyone can install a plugin anywhere they want for whatever reason they want. So I have a pretty simple thing where if the library is loaded, I will not load it again. And on the target element, I do an each. There might be a mode. If there is, I use it. If not, I take the default. So if mode is icon, I need to check here if the data for the icons is not there. I need to load it. I need to arrange it. If there is a different thing where it's a date modify, I need to load the data. And I need to reinstantiate the component. I don't know for sure if on this, yeah, so you can see if this one is false, then I do it. If it's not false, then I make it wait, and the delay is 500 milliseconds, 0.1 second, 0.5 seconds, sorry. There's also a search map based on various cases. So it's pretty simple to actually go through the code and understand what's happening. Now, This is where a lot of people will disagree, but it's very simple to write code for almost anything, but nobody can keep it tidy because they don't give a shit, right? Or they're not capable of organizing it, or they're too afraid to refactor it because they'll break it. Another quick thing I made was a simple request. This was just for one thing. Just by looking at it, you can get a really good idea on what's needed. So if it's a click on the element, off, on, event, takes the button, puts a loader, makes a request. If it's an error, it shows it in a pop-up. Or if not, if there is a redirect location, it goes there. If not, the page reloads. Again, this is for certain specific things. And it's not exactly written properly, but just looking, not named properly, but just giving a look at it, you can get an idea of how and what it does fairly easily. And this is what a lot of libraries lack. I also had to make components. I have two types. It's the same thing, but I just want to organize them different based on the use case. And different from React components, here a component has just kind of one job, where it goes, it gets registered like this, and there is an init, and it goes on a HTML container. In this case, I need the index for certain prefixings, so I can get it. This one is dynamically generated, because whenever a component is loaded, I'll go through it. I sometimes need to get a component by instance, and when a component is in it, there's one edge case where I use a mini loader for the specific one, hard-coded, but that's just how it is for now. Whenever a component is in it, there is a loader. If the component exists, I instance it. If not, I load it. And now let's go through the load. So if this pending equals to undefined, then I need to kind of start the whole thing. So if the container is not false, then I register it because I might preload a component or a set of components, in some cases just to speed things up. There is a CSS that is included. It's mandatory for a component to have a CSS. Then the script is loaded. Each component is composed by a simple format of style CSS and controller.main.js. If component container is false, I return. If not, if this is undefined, then I create the array, and then based on how many elements are there, I place the container. Length by default is 0, and it goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. After a component is loaded, there's no reason to keep it into the pending state. So I'll just go here and show you. There is pending and instance. So I remove it. I also have a method to destroy. So when I destroy something, I remove all the libraries. I remove all the components. TinyMCA, if it's there, I trigger save. I find a WP editor area each, and I kill it. This is just a pattern of how I keep it. And it's usually used in the admin. Now, it's not in the entire app, but because if it's in the admin, I wanted to have something universal where I have the same core even on the front end, kind of, and on the back end. In the admin, I want to have the same power as on the front because it's very important to show accurate live previews. Even if there will be CSS conflicts, the behavior will still be the same. So I wanted the app to behave the same in both contexts. Now, so just by looking at the code, something that not any code has is readability. So I can just go through it, and if I know JavaScript and I understand jQuery, which is amazing, and anyone that doesn't like jQuery likes to kill himself when he writes stuff, because it's just at the end of the day, jQuery has become a wrapper on the default ES 5 and 6 JavaScript. If you just put version 3, if that's up to, I think it's version 3, I don't know, I don't really care. If you put that, it's using the default browser thing, and you just have the very convenient coding thing that some have used for years. Each component has its own flavor, so any component can be organized however it's needed. In the case of courses, we have a system to have subcomponents, because this is like the most complex thing of the app, and the whole core thing is 1,000 lines. But just going through it, you can see the code is organized in a way that is readable, except on this part, which is on assessments, where it needs to interact in different ways. But apart from that, it's pretty clean and it's easy to understand anything at any point. And then because I wanted to make it very simple and easy to define kind of new course types, and all the course types have specific behaviors that are now implemented in the core. And like this, I can just invent a new basic course type. I have the events, which is complete or incomplete course. It's the same thing, so I just set the flag based on the attribute, and I just send the request. This will never happen, usually, but if it does, I just throw an alert. It technically sort of will never happen, but it's fine if it's there. So, and a template. It's very important to have templates so that if someone does front-end changes, he can just have the templates there so he can do it himself. I also have everything in lang strings. I hate hard-coding messages. And you can see that each course type has its own things. That there are icons. I just made some functions and I prefixed them in a way it doesn't conflict. I just said EC course, then the course type, HTML, SVG icon, and then I named the icons. So whenever I use them inside the templates, maybe it repeats, I can just come in and change them all here fairly easily. There is a sidebar sometimes. This is again from the course. There's various behaviors, but just going to the code, everything can be readed and there is no mess. It's all clean. When you go through a React app, it's all a big mess because it's all chunked into the same stupid component, where CSS, GS, templating is all in one file, which is stupid. It's a fallacy. I don't understand how developers that pride themselves to be smart can organize their entire app in a way where you have to have everything in the same thing. In PHP, it was a revolution when Model View Controller came out, and these guys with their React components came in and put everything in one stupid file, and they suddenly thought they're geniuses. I think the technology is becoming much more, I don't know, dumb, because when PHP started, it was just like that. You had one file, you put everything in there, CSS, PHP, HTML, everything, and then as project grows, people wanted to make them better and more practical. And I think this is a curse. You get a lot of flexibility on changing things, for example, because, okay, you make a component called button, and then you start using that stupid button everywhere, and you change attributes from it. But at the end of the day, it's just a fucking button. And the data and how it works and looks could just be a universal CSS, and then the component adjust the CSS. I'll show you an example. So in the app, I have elements that might show up everywhere, like paginations, buttons. I use attributes exclusively. This is an experiment in a way, but I'm pretty confident this will be the way that classes will die in CSS. Like they're useless. Attributes will be used, and slowly in any project, people will just use attributes because it allows you as a developer to just say, okay, I have a button. I don't make a class button, and then I add another class called button minus bot. I don't need to do, this will just be an example. I don't need to do, well, actually, let's do it like this. So I have this, and I don't do class button primary. Instead of doing that thing, I can just do data. Let's say data by button. Much more cleaner. Just look how less space it uses. And then I would have button small maybe, but or state, or because if I just make a class state, it might conflict with some stuff at the end of the day. And with attributes, I can just say data EC button state active, highlight. There's also something for size, data EC button minus size. It's all attributes and it's all clear. I don't have a mix of hundreds of stupid classes that just make everything complicated. So just as an example, I have the button that I use, and then I want to change how it behaves into a component. Let's just find one reference where I used it. Look how many. So these are events. Let's just change the file mask to SCSS. Here, I wanted the width, I wanted the padding, margin, font size, line height. And if it's link, different behavior. If it's hover, different behavior on the link. Here I needed it to be with 100%, just here, easy. And it's from the CSS. If I want someone to customize, or if I assign a task to someone to change how something behaves, he will not need to go through a React file and mess his head with it. He can just go in the SCSS file and mess there with it because he knows CSS. He does have no reason to have no React. This is all about making something accessible to other people. When these elitists go in React and they just think they're smart and they organize things however they want and just throw everything in a file and then build small chunky files that they just decompose and makes things simple. They ruin the whole thing because once you abstract too much, you just create another problem where when you need to start changing abstract behaviors, you just dig yourself a hole. And the hole will get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as you need more edge cases. I think if you look at it, Facebook themselves use CSS variables to make their theme now on the computer. They use CSS. It's there. They have CSS variables. Yet these React developers prefer to make stupid JS variables for the CSS instead of using these nice clean style variables. Look how nice they are, and they're on root. And then I can go say on a component it behaves different. Because I work like this when I needed to make a preview in the admin. And now the backend, in the WP admin, the colors are like this, and they don't get changed on how they behave on the front end to be the same on the back end, on the template style here, because there might be different things. I have one for the WP footer, and I have one for the admin footer. Now let's look here. Here I print CSS variables on root, and in the admin I print them on the shortcode builder on the preview. So the preview in the admin for any component or any shortcode or anything is strictly there only changed. And this is something that with React would just be a burden. Here it's simple. It's absolutely no stress. It's just simple. They prefer, developers usually prefer to keep things complicated just so they can make people think that they're smart, but they're not. Any retard should be able to read the code and understand what's happening. And when someone cannot do that, they take it as a sign of pride instead of taking it as a sign of failure. Any non-developer should get the illusion that if he looks at your code, he understands it, because it's just an illusion. Just a dev who, at the end of the day, will understand the code. But it needs to work like an illusion. And people, normal people, need to look at code and understand it. When someone reads this, he understands it. I will not go through junk code. The internet is full of junk code, and the internet has a fair share amount of very clean code too. So let's just go. I'll just show you another thing. I have a fair amount of junk. So I'm not saying I don't have any junk. Let's take some PHP. So let's say controller. So here I have a singleton. I started organizing stuff in API. But if I go through it, I can find anything. I see, okay, this is the action tracking. So what's this action tracking? Add-ons, authentication, and this is on generic part, email marketing. Okay, what's this? This is like a wrapper I made because there's various integrations of email marketing that can work. And I need a universal interface where any amount of integrations can be active at the same time or not there. And I just wanted to make it myself simple, to be able to tag, remove tag, whatever on these integrations. So here for the tag, it's all about text-based integrations because I just pass a text, I just tag. There's various complexity wrappers, kind of, because most integrations are not text-based. They don't make it easy. You need to get their stupid IDs because they cannot do their query on their side and just make it simple for anyone to integrate it and not have to interact with their IDs for simple things that are just text. But it's just my opinion. A lot of people make their APIs complicated because they don't understand that the simpler you make it for the other people to integrate it, the more people will integrate with it, especially when you're building a SaaS. It's just, if you build a SaaS, you need to make it simple for other people to integrate it, especially if it's email marketing. Because if they don't do it easily, those guys need to spend a lot of money. And marketers don't really like spending money on software, except if it makes money. And very few software things make money, like directly make money at the end of the day. That was just a small parenthesis. Clean. Let's take another one. Let's take something that is nasty. Let's take this one. Let's say post. Right. So here, this is the entries. Like there's no pagination. I just get everything. There is ways to get it with pagination too. Now, let's say I want to see where this is used. So I just go into here. There is this API thing. So we can see API, content type, coordinator, nothing, because it's in the controller. The controller is the coordinator. Platform health. Request doesn't have one. Data system doesn't have one because it doesn't need one. There's also ACL for the API to export, which uses this one. It says Can the user do that? Good. Admin permission. Yes, okay. Return true. Post is numeric, get post, post ID. Because maybe I get a post object here, because in WordPress that's possible. Even if it is, I named it post ID, I could just call it post for the sake of it, but usually I pass post IDs. If is not, that is not existent. Why is that there? Maybe someone will filter through the response of this and remove it and then make my call fail. So if it doesn't exist, or if it doesn't equal to current user, false, else true. Here the same on edit. It's exactly the same thing, almost, because you can see it says current user can edit others course. Analytics, cap manage members. So for view, again, this is for the ACL. If user ID equals to false, get. If there's no ACL, he has access. If he can manage settings, he has access. If the post doesn't exist, false. If it's the post author, true. Get all the integrations, see if he has access. Because of the way the integrations work, if an integration is not used on a specific post, because someone might be using multiple integrations at the same time, then he will not get the response. And because sometimes I need to know which integration was responsible for the access, I need this to return by reference. So I need to know which one was used. If it goes with the default response, I need to make sure that the integration is false, because here I go through a loop and the integration variable changes there through the loop. I don't use two variables, I just use one. Here, for a beginner, might not even notice, but someone that understands this sign will, and how for each works will understand. Okay. But again, the code is readable, and that's what's important. I just scroll down and long function names, something other people laugh, but I was doing this too, especially on class names, when Zend1 existed, and then PHP 5.4 came out, and namespacing began to be a thing, and I was laughing because look at all those idiots that were looking at my code and didn't understand why I had classes like this one in my old structuring in Zend1, and Zend1 actually suggested had this part of the architecture, if I remember correctly, would have been this. But now, because of namespacing, I can just do that and then this, and very simple. Full of morons. You want your code to be easy to navigate, easy to change, easy to find anything. It's just everything needs to be easy and predictable. It doesn't need to be complicated. You always want to have code where you can just look at it and understand what is happening. This is not always possible, but for the majority of things, this is something that is possible. Anyway, so this was just a flex on what can be achieved if you keep your code clean, and how easy it can be to find anything. Why I think most of developers are just a bunch of dum-dums. And if you watch this video, I hope that you'll think different and you'll start ignoring the noise and just focus on writing code that you can maintain and clean easily. Because it's very important to have code that can be maintained easily. Bug fixing needs to be easy and fast. It's very important, even if you build in only one language, to never fucking hardcode language strings. Here, you always put them all In here, I just wanted to have autocomplete because they come from the app. But you always want to have language strings for everything. In WordPress, it's not that simple. But in JavaScript, even if it's in WordPress, I can have this nice thing, and I love it. I love it. At one point, even in WordPress, I will turn, let me find something. I will turn this piece of junk, I don't know how to call it different, this kind of piece of junk into something like shortcode, element, title, notification, and I'll just put everything like that. So it's all a dedicated string and it's easy to find. Laravel is one of the best ways to put translation strings, in my opinion. It's the king. Cool. So that's pretty much it. Call this a brain dump. I hope you like it. Have a great one.